Let's cross to Canberra now and catch up with Matt Canavan, the National Senator for Queensland and former Resources Minister. Thanks for joining us, Matt. Surely we haven't been able to see the Chris Bowen speech. Apparently no recordings of it, strangely enough, but you would have read it. What's your take on what he told the Australian-American Association in New York?
Well, Chris, my takeaway is that I often get accused as a Conservative of wanting to take the country back to, say, the 1950s, you know, when families stayed intact and drug and crime use was low and we had a thriving manufacturing industry. But be that as it may, Chris Bowen always talks about the 2050s. It's always about the future, not about the here and now. And I just wish we had an Australian government, and governments around the world for that matter, which would focus on the here and now. Because in the here and now, in the present day, we do not have enough energy in the free world to keep the fight up to the barbaric invasion that Russia has engaged in the Ukraine. In the real world, there are people starving in Africa now because food prices are through the roof. There's a fertiliser shortage around the world. And in the real world, you've got the US government going around the world to various dictators in the Middle East and South America, begging them to give them oil. We should be focused on what we need to do now. What we need to do now is increase the use of reliable energy in the free and democratic world to defend that free and democratic world. We know China's increasing their coal mining. China's building more coal-fired power stations. But here in Australia and in Europe and North America, they're on another planet. You made a good comparison there with Buzz Lightyear. It's like Chris Bowen is from a galaxy far, far, far away. I mean, we need to focus on the real world here to provide energy to people, to get down our power prices and save what's left of our manufacturing industry.
Now, the point here is that there's a lot of disingenuous misinformation being put about. Now, obviously, what's happened in Russia has affected the energy markets in Europe. There's no doubt about that. But the problem is, the underlying problem that's made Europe exposed is the push to renewables. They've got rid of their dispatchable power generation. They've got rid of coal. They haven't fracked for gas or built enough gas generation to back up. They made themselves reliable. And look, Boris Johnson has realised this. He admits that they need nuclear energy and that they've gone too far down the renewables push. Yet Chris Bowen tells the world that the way out of this is to do more of the very things that got them in this mess.
Well, that's right, Chris. I mean, I feel a bit sorry for Chris Bowen because he seems like a guest that's rocked up at the party after everybody's had a bit too much to drink and they're starting to go home and the best songs have already been sung from the karaoke machine. Because it's all happened. He's saying we're back in the club, we're joining the rest of the world on climate change. Yet all his dance partners have already moved on. The new Prime Minister there in the UK that you mentioned is fracking again. She's getting fracking. When does Chris Bowen, as a Minister for Energy here, ever mention the gas industry or fracking? In Germany, the German Greens Party are reopening 21 coal-fired power stations. India's just announced plans to massively expand their coal-fired power. This is happening right around the world. The whole net zero agenda that Chris Bowen hoped that he was getting elected to implement is dead around the world, is not going anywhere anytime soon. And the sooner we realise that, the better it will be for us, because I fear it seems to be this government has its head so far in the sand that it's going to wait for our lights to turn off, for us to end up in the same situation Europe's in before they'll wake up. I mean, now, you rightly mentioned there, they always blame... You go.
I agree with you. This is a real crisis in Europe right now, and we know we've had close calls already. We're warned to expect more. Now, so it's a real problem for the country. Now, my issue here is, apart from waiting for the blackouts to happen, we need a political party to stand up for reliable, affordable power. To argue the sorts of policy positions you argue, but your own coalition is now torn on this, right? You've got, Andrew Bragg and Simon Birmingham. They basically want to match Labor. They want to support its 43% by 2030 footprint. What chance the coalition can actually unify around an energy policy that will protect our supplies and keep energy affordable?
Well, I won't put a probability on it because it will change, and it will change based on your viewers and others out there standing up and speaking up. So if there's people watching this that share your view that we should make energy a contestable space, that politics should be a contest of ideas, we should fight for what we know is right on the Conservative side, call your local MP, get in touch with them. tell them this is what they should do in Canberra, because I agree with you completely. We'd be much better off as a country if we actually have a debate about these issues. But this whole idea that the climate wars are over and there's peace in our time is absurd, because we should hold this government to scrutiny and account. And we have been politically successful over the past decade, standing against radical climate action, standing for reliable energy. And I still believe there is a massive groundswell of support out there, latent support, for a political party that will stand up and say, we want Australia to make things again. We want this country to be able to be a strong, powerful manufacturing country. And the only way you can do that is to have energy in abundance. Now, we have energy in abundance under the ground, under our feet, but if we're not going to dig it up, if we're not going to drill for it, well, it'll stay there and we'll lose all our manufacturing jobs to China.
Don't worry, Chris Buzz Lightyear Bowen is going to make us a renewable energy superpower to infinity and beyond. Thanks for joining us, Matt. Matt Canavan there, Queensland LNP Senator.